Well, if you've been looking at buying an investment property here in Airdrie, Alberta, then there's a good chance you've been considering a long-term rental. And there's no doubt that Airdrie has been a great place to own a rental property with a long-term tenant, but as an investor, you're likely curious, what are your other options? Well, my wife and I have been operating 2 Airbnb suites here in Airdrie for the last 16 months, and today we're going to go over how it went. We're going to talk about the numbers, the ups, the downs, and why we ultimately decided to switch over to a long-term rental. And it may not be for the reason that you think, so make sure to stick around to the end, or I'll let you know why we moved away from Airbnb. But first, please go hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm so more people can learn about different investment options here in Airdrie. If you're coming back to the channel, I'm sure that you must already be subscribed, but if this is your first time watching, thanks for being here first off, and please subscribe so you don't miss all of our upcoming videos on Airdrie real estate. Alright, well, Airbnb in Airdrie. So to give you a little backstory, my wife and I bought an investment property in Airdrie back in 2021. It's a 2-story home with a suite in the basement. Not a fancy suite, just 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchenette area, and a living room. And the upper level was 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, a full kitchen, and a living space with an attached double garage. So we decided that we were gonna give Airbnb a try with it with 2 separate units and see how it goes. We said if we get a few months in and it's not doing very well, we'll just switch it at that point to a long-term rental. Now this definitely was a bit of a risk because in order to turn both suites into Airbnbs, we would need to fully equip both units with furniture, kitchen supplies, bathroom supplies, TVs, and everything that comes along with an Airbnb. So over the next couple months while we waited for our possession date, we started accumulating furniture and storing it in our garage at home, and by the time we took possession, we had nearly everything we needed to get set up, and it spent about $10,000 doing so. And this is in addition to stealing some furniture from our own house to equip the Airbnb units. So for the first time since we bought our first home together, my wife and I found ourselves back to sleeping on a mattress on the floor as our bed frame and our side tables went to the Airbnb. And then came the moment of truth. We took possession in October 2021 and got to it. We spent a few days getting it all set up. Everyone was pitching in, even our kids who were 3, 5, and 7 at the time, spent those days hauling in boxes, pillows, bed sheets, whatever they were able to, they helped with during those days while we were getting set up. And once we got it all set up, we brought in the photographer for the photos and got it listed on Airbnb, and then we waited. And to our relief, we didn't have to wait very long. The bookings started to come in pretty much right away, and even though it was already halfway through October, we got our first guests in both suites before the end of that first month. And to our surprise, and many other people who we spoke to it about, our 2 Airbnb suites in Airdrie stayed busy throughout that winter, through into the next spring and summer, and for the remainder of 2022 as well. Now I know most of the time when people think of starting an Airbnb, they think of touristy areas that people will be vacationing to, but the downside with that is there's typically a high season and a low season. The nice thing about having a short-term rental in a non-touristy place like Airdrie is that we never experienced a high or a low season. It was basically steady all the time. People would be coming to Airdrie to visit family and want their own space, or they'd be coming for work and need a place for a few weeks. We had people who moved from out of province to Alberta and needed an Airbnb while they waited for possession of their new home. We even had a family who stayed for a couple months who just moved to Canada from South Africa. And one of my favorites that we had is we hosted a mall Santa for 2 winters in a row who needed a place to stay when he was not out spreading joy. And that was one of the coolest parts that I found about owning the Airbnb, was discovering why people would be coming to visit Airdrie, because it always seemed to be a different reason. Now throughout our 16 months of Airbnb, we averaged 83% occupancy across both units, which meant that the investment was turning out to be quite profitable. For 2022, we had an average revenue of $4,900 per month for the home with both suites combined. Of course, doing an Airbnb, our costs were also higher than they would be with a long-term rental as well. Additional costs that you're going to have while running an Airbnb will include cleaning between the guests, your internet, restock items such as shampoo, coffee, toilet paper, and replacing damaged items like broken dishware and stained sheets and stuff like that. Our typical monthly expenses ranged anywhere from $3,000 to $3,500 per month, depending on how much cleaning needed to be done or what needed to be replaced that month. So over the course of those 16 months, we averaged about $1,500 cash flow per month from our Airbnb house. So this worked out to about 3 times what we could get for a cash flow on a long-term rental in the same house. So strictly from a profitability standpoint, seems like a no-brainer. But the downside for us anyway to running an Airbnb versus a long-term rental is the amount of management work that has to go into it. From managing bookings, cleanings between guests, and dealing with guest problems, it requires a fair bit of time to manage both suites. Now we had some stretches of great guests who were a breeze and just super easy to deal with, and then we had other times where we had guests that had a new problem every day. But it was our last guests that we had in the home that are really what put the nail in the coffin for us for the short-term rentals. They were racist towards other guests in our other suite, they got aggressive when we sent a maintenance guy in to fix an issue, and they were just overall bad people that we as the managers had to deal with, and we actually ended up kicking them out before the end of their stay. Ultimately, we just got to the point where we felt like it was taking too much time away from our family and too much time away from my main business, which is being a realtor and serving my clients. So at that point, we looked at short-term management companies to help solve that problem, but that would bring us down to about the same cash flow that we'd be getting from a long-term rental. So at that point, we decided that we were going to stop doing Airbnb altogether and rent the home out long-term. So after hearing our experience with Airbnb in Airdrie, what can we learn from it? Well, first things first, Airbnb in Airdrie works, and it works very well in terms of potential profit on an investment property. But the second thing to know is that it's a lot of work, both on the management side and the actual cleaning and turnover side. Now we decided to outsource the cleaning and turnovers, but it did cost us more to do it that way. Now granted, if it was my wife and I doing all the turnovers and cleaning, we would have switched to a long-term rental much sooner, as that additional time of the house just wouldn't have been feasible for us. Now there are short-term rental management companies that will take care of this step for you, but that'll just be something that you have to look at if you want to pursue owning an Airbnb in Airdrie. Now all that being said, that is just our experience with Airbnb. I do know other people who own Airbnbs in Airdrie and they absolutely love the business. And I know others who've had a much more similar story to that of my wife and I. At the end of the day, this business just isn't for everyone, but for the right person, they can really enjoy it while making a great profit. So if you are interested in buying investment property in Airdrie, either for long-term rental or Airbnb, I'd be more than happy to represent you and help you in that purchase. Coming from someone with experience on both sides of the coin, I think if we work together, we can find you the perfect investment property for you here in Airdrie. So reach out anytime. All of my information is down below. Feel free to call, text, or email me. And again, my name is Brad Walker with Real Broker, and we'll see you in the next video.